In this episode, I'm going to show you how to turn a Nerf blaster that looks like this into something that looks like this. If you haven't guessed already, in this episode I'm going to show you how to paint your Nerf blasters. So in this how-to, I painted up this tri-strike with a worker stock custom recon barrel and just the tri-strike main blaster. So I'm going to go over how to do sanding, taking apart your blaster, spraying, detailing, clear coating, putting it back together, everything you need to know to paint your Nerf blaster. So let's get straight into the video. To start off, you will need paint. Here are the paints I'm using. I'm starting with a Rust-olium 2X black base coat, followed by a Dupli-color gunmetal primary color. After those, I'm going to use details with Tamaya Superb hand paints. Lastly, a Rust-olium satin clear coat to lock our paints down. You will need sandpaper with multiple grits, screwdrivers, masking tape if you want to keep places unpainted, paint brushes if you are doing hand paint. If you're dry brushing, you will need a large brush like this one. And finally, your blaster. Start by taking apart your blaster and the attachments you want to be painted. I keep all my internals and pieces I do not want painted in a plastic container. Now, let's get sanding. Alright, so once you're up to this point, you're going to be pretty much getting into the sanding phase and pretty much getting ready our blaster and prepping it for paint. So this is the part that you want to get it pretty well. This is going to pretty much help our paint stick to our blaster and how well our paint job is going to turn out. So the more time you spend here in the sanding process and the prep work, the better your end result is, regardless on how well of a spray painter you are. This is also the stage where we're going to be doing logo removal and get rid of stuff that we don't want on the exterior of the blaster after we finish the paint job. So for instance, on this side of the modular shell, we've got all of this warning labels, instructions on how to use the blaster, and when you paint over that, it looks really bad and really cheap and tacky. So I'm going to go ahead and sand those off. And that's going to give it a much smoother appearance and a much more professional finish when the paint's actually applied to the blaster. Onto the sandpaper. I use personally this 3M silicone sandpaper. So it's pretty much on a silicone backing instead of paper. So it's not actually sandpaper, it's sand silicone. So as you can see, it's much more easier to warp and you can crush it up like that. It's in my hand. And then it's going to spring back to life and be the same. This helps when you're really trying to sand something out and you want to kind of fold your sandpaper up like this so you can get a better grip on it. I can do that with this sandpaper, and then as you can see, it comes back to normal like that. As with regular sandpaper, I've got this fold here, and now it comes back. That fold is going to stay there because it is sandpaper, and that's the way paper pretty much is. So I like to stick to these silicone sandpaper. I also really like using these 3M sandblasting pads. So pretty much it's a block of foam, you can see just swashing it like that, that has sand on it. So pretty much sandpaper around it, which you can squeeze up, and then it allows you, when sanding, it will morph to the blaster. So it's gonna, as you can see, it will bend and it'll take shape to the blaster shell which you're trying to sand. So this comes in a variety of different grits as well, and it's really great for the final sanding where you can get all the bits out, give it a nice even sand, no big sand markings throughout it. These are great for that. And then lastly, I do still use sandpaper because this is 400 grit sandpaper, very smooth sandpaper, wet sanding. This is the final stage of sanding, this is here, and then you go over that and that's going to give you that beautiful finish on the blaster shell. So let's get into logo removal and sanding. I'm focusing on the badging and warning logos on this build until they are smooth, then focusing on giving the blaster an overall smooth sand.
I'm starting with 150 grit sandpaper, then working my way up to 400 to 800 grit.
So after sanding, you'll find that your blaster shell kind of has a residue on it from sanding. Usually all the paint that's been scuffed up and the plastic that we've just sanded off. So just grab a rag and go over it. Make sure you can get as much off as you can, because otherwise when we paint over it, that's going to be underneath the layer of paint we spray down. So this side of the tri-strike was actually pretty bad. And as you can see, just with a rub with my rag, all of that comes off. And it's going to help our paint stick a whole lot better to our blaster. Once you've done that to all your bits, we can now head outside and start painting.
Leave your paint to warm up in the sun before painting. It helps the paint thin out and makes it spray on much easier.
This is what your prep work comes down to. This is the painting stage, so we're going to be laying on a base coat first before our actual colour that I want the blaster to be. So a few tips before we get started. Highly recommend picking up a high quality respirator. I'd rather pay 30 bucks to protect my lungs than paint them the same colour that I'm painting the blaster today. Got this one really cheap from Bunnings. It was about 30 bucks. Can't go wrong with 30 bucks really. And this will stop all the paint fumes and colour going into our bodies, and our bodies pretty much absorbing paint. So as you can see, I'm outside and I've got the blaster set up on this concrete plate here. I've used this plate to paint many blasters. As you can see, there's a lot of paint on it. And my first tip would be start from the inside and then paint your way out. So what I'm going to do is lay down a black base coat along the inside of the blasters. Pretty much going to be focusing on the tri-strike body and the recon barrel. For the worker stock, I don't really have to, because you're not going to actually see the inside of that. But that's the whole reason why you'd paint the inside of your blaster. So let's give our can a good shake and then get painting.
Start with the inside of your blaster. Try not to go overboard with the paint on the inside of the shell, because you're only going to not see it. Spraying inside first also helps the other side of the stubborn tactical rails and parts of the shell you won't be able to paint once it's flipped. Once dry enough to touch, flip the parts over and start spraying on your base on the exterior of the blaster. Start spraying just before the paint touches the blaster. Move your hand at a steady pace and apply the paint evenly. Make sure you get every part of the blaster. Once covered, let the base coat dry for 1 to 2 hours. Once dry and safe to touch, repeat the same steps for your primary colour, giving the blaster very even coats and moving your hands in a steady motion. I love this colour. I recommend Dupli-color paints over any other paint on the market. It gives a nice thin coverage but still enough colour to coat the complete blaster, and their colours are amazing.
Now for our details. So now that we've done the actual base coat and the main colour that our blaster is going to be, my base coat came out really well. The colour is really nice. I love this gunmetal type colour. Now I'm going to be doing like a realistic camo, faux camo style paint job. So I'm going to be going over with the green detailing, with grey detailing such as the handle and like the stock parts of the blaster where you're actually going to be gripping it, and then subtle white and black detailing. Now I'm going to be hand painting these on with brushes. So you can mask up, get spray paint and do it that way, but I find it's cheaper and effective to do hand painting. You've got much more control, You won't get leakage throughout the masking tape. If you do stuff up with the hand paint, you can easily wipe it away before it dries. You can be much more intricate and do smaller detailing with hand painting. And like I said, you save a lot of money doing it. So hand painting is the way to go, me personally. But if you're also in the detailing stage, this is where you'll be masking up your blaster, ready to do other detailing with your spraying. So if that's you, do the same steps we did for the base coat for your masking, and everything will be sweet. But let's get into the hand detailing.
I start by painting large areas on the blaster, such as the handle and green fillings on the blaster. I start by edging out the shapes with a very small detail brush, then fill in with large brushes. I try to keep the colours matching and that work well together, so there are no colour clashing. I also try to keep the same colours apart from each other, so that there is not too much colour in the same place, to prevent it from being overwhelming. Also try and paint solid places on the blaster. All parts you knew were painted from the factory can work really well when painted in custom colours. As you can see, I've tried to keep the paint job as clean as possible and have kept the colours matching and not too clumped together. In my opinion, I've done a really good job capturing the lines on the blaster and painting the shell. Now let the hand paint dry for a few hours. Let's lock our paint down with a matte clear coat. The clear coat acts as a protecting layer for the paints that lay underneath the coating of the paint. It also helps giving the blaster the nice shiny gloss look or the matte look you want. For your clear coat, repeat the last steps as previously done for the base and primary colour, but be careful, you can clear coat to your heart's content, but make sure you don't paint too thick, because if you get runs in your clear coat, to correct it, you will have to affect all the other paints beneath it. Let your clear coat dry for 24 hours, and for the first few hours, allow the paint to have access to sunlight. This allows the clear to dry and harden before the air goes cold. If you do clear before it can harden, it may cloud and is quite difficult to get off the blaster. Once dry, grab your parts and let's assemble this blaster back together. First, start with the attachments. I do the stock, then barrel, and lastly, the blaster. Tip when assembling, make sure you re-lube the blaster's internals before putting them back in to prevent grinding and paint chippings inside the blaster. And now your paint job is complete. And with just those steps, guys, you can turn pretty much any dull Nerf blaster into something that looks just like this. Now, it does take a lot of patience, and I've done multiple paint jobs, but those are the steps I use to do paint jobs like this. It will take time, a lot of practice. You may not get something that looks like this on your first go, but keep going at it and one day you'll be able to make something like this. So I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope you guys learned something and you guys know how to actually do Nerf paint jobs now. If you like this type of video and want to know how to upgrade your Nerf blasters, check out the video here so you know how to upgrade your Springer blasters, or check out the videos here to see how to upgrade your flywheel blasters. But as always guys, thank you so much for watching, it really does mean a lot to me. If you like this type of video and want to check out more, go to my channel, or if you want to keep up with me when I'm not making videos, check out my Facebook and Instagram in the description. But until next time, I'll see you in the next one.